Firstly, very good morning to all of you. Good afternoon, good evening for people joining from all over the world. It's absolute pleasure to host you today. I'm Professor Siddharth Kastagi from WMG University of Warwick. I'm joined with my colleagues, Mohammed Musa from DeepenAI and Fadi Alakad from WMG at University of Warwick. So it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to host you at the first of the monthly series of Safety Pool webinars. And what we're going to do today is introduce you to why we actually started Safety Pool, talk a bit about some of the features, give you a big demo about the Safety Pool features, the current features that we have, what the features that will be coming up in the near future, and then go into a question and answer session with all of you, having all the questions that you have. We can answer that over the next couple of hours that we have over here. So what we'll do is we'll start with a brief introduction between myself and Mohammed Musa, who's the CEO of DeepenAI, and we'll talk a bit about why we started Safety Pool, and then we'll go into the details of the Safety Pool itself. So Mo, would you like to do a quick introduction from your side, and then we'll get started?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Siddhartha, and great to be here. And thanks to WMG for organizing this monthly webinar. I hope to be coming up on regular basis. Yeah, my name is Mohammed Musa. I'm founder and CEO of DeepenAI. Founded the company with two ex-Googlers back in 2017. And I'll tell you about the introduction of the company in the context of what we're doing with safety. So when we started the company, we went to a lot of potential customers and talked about, how do you certify the safety of autonomous vehicles? And they said, well, it's complicated, but we have all of these other problems that we need to solve before we worry about safety. And that led into Deepen starting to do sensor fusion annotation. So we provide tools and services to annotate and label multi-sensor data, as well as multi-sensor calibration. So we provide tools and software to calibrate the different sensors, which contribute into the safety process. And then the third area is around safety validation, which is our collaboration with WMG. And Deepen, so now has been around for almost 7.5 years, with a lot of engagements with the world's top OEMs and tier 1 suppliers, as well as the autonomous vehicle companies. So we've worked with the likes of Waymo and Cruise and Nuro and Zoox and so on, in different capacities, and then with the OEMs and the tier 1s. And great to be here. I'll turn it back to Siddhartha.
Perfect. Thank you, Mo. So just a quick overview of today's session. So you'll hear from me, Siddharth Kastagi, professor at WMG University of Warwick, Fadi Alakad, who's the lead engineer in verification validation team at WMG at University of Warwick, and Mo, who's just introduced you. So if you move on to the next slide, please, we'll do a very quick overview of the program itself. So before we go into any details, I think we won't be here today without the support of our funders, Center for Connected Autonomous Vehicles in the UK, and our big supporters at Vehicle Certification Agency in the UK, who are planning to use Safety Pool as part of the type approval process for automated driving systems in the UK. So we are very grateful to all the support that we've received from the UK government, and hope to continue in delivering on our promises for safety of automated driving systems going forward. Next slide, please. So here's a brief agenda for the day. So just we've done through the introductions and housekeeping session. So we'll go into a bit of the motivation behind Safety Pool between me and Mo for around 10 minutes. And then Fadi will give you an overview demo of the whole Safety Pool platform, highlighting some of the features that we have, and also highlighting some of the upcoming features that we'll have. Then we'll do a very quick 5-minute overview of how to get access to Safety Pool. In our experience, since we've launched Safety Pool over the last couple of years, we've had feedback, some of the feedback about some of the maybe challenges that people have had. And what we've done is we've kind of clustered a lot of the questions into some specific pitfalls that people have had, or mistakes people might have made, and some changes that we've done at our end, so that you have a more seamless experience in getting access to Safety Pool and getting onboarded to Safety Pool itself. And then we've got around 20 minutes at the end to go about question and answers, just from your experience, for people who have used Safety Pool, people who want to use Safety Pool going forward. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I wanted to mention, this webinar is going to be recorded and it will be shared through Safety Pool Scenario Database website and also the social media platforms. For those of you who could not join or your colleagues who would like to hear a recording of that video, we will post this on our Safety Pool YouTube channel, but also share it with everybody who's registered for the webinar itself. For the question and answers, if you look through Zoom, at the bottom, there should be a Q&A box. So please feel free to provide your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll answer as many as possible during the course of this webinar itself. And the ones that we can't answer during the course of this webinar, we will issue questions and other answers after the session itself. Okay, so with that, maybe we start off with a quick overview between Mo and myself about why we actually started the Safety Pool initiative itself. So just to give you a bit of a background for everybody, Mo and I got in touch maybe late of 2019, early 2020, just before the pandemic. And what we established was we have a common view to the way we look at safety of automated driving system. And the view was that we actually believe, both of us believe, that safety of automated driving systems needs to be pre-competitive. And maybe more, I would like to bring you into the conversation as to being a commercial entity. How can you reconcile to this thought that safety of automated driving systems need to be competitive? And what was the thinking behind, from your perspective, for Safety Pool and not using it as a commercial platform?
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned earlier, when we started the company, we looked at the problems and challenges that people were facing with developing autonomous systems at large, whether it's for vehicles or robotics or drones and so on. And the understanding of the data was a key aspect of that. So that's how we started the annotation business. But what we noticed is at the time in 2017, 2018, 6 or 7 different companies were mapping the streets of Mountain View again and again and again, trying to extract scenarios, trying to label the data, understand the perception challenges, the planning, prediction, and so on. And it seemed like a waste. You know, the world is the same. And if we use in the Safety Pool language, it's an operational design domain. So if you're driving from, say, Mountain View City to Sunnyvale, that road, whether you're taking the highway or you're taking urban streets, it's a single instantiation of that road. And the scenarios that one customer may see are very likely to be seen by others. And from a competitive standpoint, we saw very early that people should not be competing on the safety of the system. They should be competing on the higher order aspects, like what is the vehicle ride comfort level, what is the size, what is the experience from a mobile app experience, you know, how fast can you get the vehicle there, and also what are the other ecosystem aspects that are available. But from a safety perspective, if even one player gets into a major accident, it will actually affect the entire ecosystem, especially from a regulatory standpoint. Because the moment you have an accident that yields unfortunate loss of life or loss of property, the expectation from the public is significantly more from autonomous systems than it's from human drivers. And for that reason, we wanted a single place where whenever there is an edge case or a risky scenario that we have witnessed, that we can propagate that learning to all of the ecosystem players and the stakeholders across the car makers, the technology providers, the universities who are doing research and understanding of these systems, as well as the regulators who need to make sure that these vehicles are deployed safely on their streets. And if you don't do that in a way that is somewhat unified, or at least has a shared semantics of safety, then we're going to be lost, because we never do apples to apples comparison. And when you cannot do quantified comparative analysis of why a system is safe versus another system that is not safe, what does that even mean? So the idea is every scenario that may cause a safety risk should land in safety pool. And it should not be a competitive component. It should be a learning for everybody to ensure that we don't lose any lives, we don't lose any property. That is the dream of autonomy, is to make vehicles safer. If we cannot realize the safety mission, then we would be completely blocked, essentially. And so carrying that learning from a collective learning, from a mindset of sharing and collaboration, rather than a mindset of, oh, who's going to get there first? And if you want to get there first with, super features or pricing or ETA, you're like the fastest to deliver something or someone, that's great. But we should not be competing on safety, because any mistake in the system, in the entire ecosystem, will hurt everybody in that ecosystem. So it becomes, if you think about it from a game theory perspective, it's actually, you're not going to win alone. But if you lose, you're going to make all of us lose. So that's a lose-lose situation. And that was the inspiration behind what I tried to do back in 2017. It was unfortunate that at the time, a lot of the stakeholders did not actually understand the underlying kind of theory or philosophy behind this until I met Siddhartha in 2019, and with Nico and my team at the time, who kind of forged this partnership. We were working with the World Economic Forum already on, and that was the name of the project, was called Safety Pool, for this database of all of the scenarios whenever you witness a risky situation that is concretely attached to an operational design domain. So you know the location, you know the geography, you know what kind of circumstances you're going to encounter. So it's not some fancy or impossible type situation. It's like, here's the street, it's summertime, it's daytime, you know what the weather is going to be like, you know what the traffic patterns are going to be like. And then you can quantify and understand the safety and the mechanics of the safety of the system in that operation. So I've kind of compiled a lot of years of,
that's great. That's great, Mo. I think one of the things that I wanted to highlight here from our perspective at WMG at University of Warwick, we are in a very unique position here, because what we are trying to do is provide the research evidence for policymakers, at the same time trying to provide the research evidence for our industrial partners to ensure safe deployment. And a big part of our focus is how do we get people and the normal public to trust in these systems. And we've just launched PAVE UK, Partners in Automated Vehicle Education UK. And one of the focus here was, in order for people to trust these systems, we need to make this ecosystem believe and practice safety being transparent and pre-competitive. So that's where we came from. And I think that's where our way of working very much aligned with Mo and us at Warwick. Okay. So I think that was a bit of an overview of how DEEPN and Warwick came together for this initiative. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Fadi to do a demo of the platform itself. What we'll do is we'll talk through each and every feature that we have, and also briefly mention about some of the upcoming features. Please feel free to put in your questions during the demo itself, because I do feel a lot of questions will come up during the demo. And we'll try and answer those questions as part of the Q&A itself. So maybe Fadi, could you do before you start, do a bit of an introduction of yourself, and then we take it from there. Over to you, Fadi.
Hello everyone. My name is Fadi. I'm a lead engineer at WMG University of Warwick. I lead different projects. One of them is Safety Pool, and I'll go to like a brief demo to Safety Pool and show you some of the features there and the planned features as well. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yeah, that's fine. Good to go.
First of all, when organization enters Safety Pool, they will see the organization name at the top, and so the user management on the higher level is based on the organization, and the admin of the organization can then invite the organization members and assign the required rules for them. So when first enter safety pool, you will see this dashboard, and it's starting by searching for scenarios, because we can understand the user journey that they might join safety pool and search for certain use cases. So first here, all the scenarios in safety pool are labeled based on the ODD and label and ODD and its behavior in open label format. So here you can see in the ODD, you will find the dynamic elements, in the weather conditions, or the scenario elements, plus the behaviors of the dynamic elements on the road. Plus, you can see metadata, which we mean here that the custom tags or labels that are not included in the ontology of the format. And you can see also the query criteria here when you are interested in certain label or certain use cases that represent what you are looking for. For example, here prepared this simple search, like you have buildings, number of lanes, and then you can assign the values. Also, you can use a greater than or other operations, and a broken line. And you can exclude also items. For example, I'm asking here that give me all the scenarios that have building, number of lanes 3, and broken line, but doesn't, or that the scenarios should not have junctions. Then you can choose the libraries, which if it's private or public. I'll come to the libraries in a minute. And then you search for your scenarios based on the libraries. And this might be private libraries that you have created, or your organization created that for you, or public libraries that we provide to you. And also you can save the search criteria, and this is actually based one of the requirements that we've got from our activities in international events or international activities, that you can save your research, your search criteria, and also search query. So for example, here I have motorway in snow, school crossing, and others. Another thing that I would like to highlight here is we also have the functionality if you want to implement or do like a complex search query. For example, you can group elements. For example, here you can add a group, for example, and for this group you can assign other elements, and also you can do or and. So just because the users might have different use cases, so just we allow these just to meet what the users need. And then in terms of the scenarios, how the scenarios or libraries are structured. So all the scenarios in safety pool are structured into libraries, and every library represents what the scenarios are. So here you have the public libraries, which we give to the users in free mode, and the user can access the library and the scenarios. I will dive into the library just in 1 minute. So this is the public library. This is the owned library, which this is only for the users or the organizations. And for example, you can create your scenarios and nobody can see what your scenarios. So you can store that and then retrieve that through an API. And then you can see here the shared libraries. So we understand that sometimes two organizations would like to share their scenarios with other organizations. So we allow this functionality. And as also in terms of publication and scenarios purchased. So here, what we mean here by purchase is not like an actual money. We have a token system. So you can see at the top here, you have credits. So when every time the organizations submit scenarios or publish scenarios to the public domain, will get credits. And these credits can be spent to access some of the restricted scenarios. So we are encouraging organizations to contribute, and other organizations get the benefit. So that would be helpful for everyone. And in terms of the library, so for example, I have this library, ALKS, You can see a number of the scenario, how many scenarios there. You can also download all the scenarios in a bulk mode, and this will download all the files inside the scenarios. For example, I have LKS crossing pedestrian. First off, you can see this is the overview of the scenario page. You can see the name of the scenario, the visualization of the scenarios, the ID of the scenario, the library that the scenario belongs to. And then we started with the tags. So we started with the tags because we believe that the tags give the overview of what the scenarios are. So instead of going and reading the definition of the scenario, so from the tags, you can understand what these scenarios. It's just like an index of the book that helps the users to know the elements of the scenarios, if the user is interested in these scenarios or not. So you can see here that the structuring based on the scenery elements, the weather conditions, the dynamic elements, and the behavior. And one of the functions that we have also implemented recently is that it shows what the dynamic elements can be swapped for. For example, the ego here, or the vehicle, can be also swapped for a bus, a motorcycle, a car, etc. Then we have the definition. So you can see the definition in SDL level 2, which is developed by WMG, also OpenScenario 1.x, and also Flex 1889. So as we see that we are always pushing using the international standards in terms of the labeling. We are using ISO 34503. We are using OpenLabel, and in terms of the scenario definition, also we are using the OpenScenario, Flex. So for those who don't know what Flex is, it provides a natural description for the language for those who are not familiar with the or not non-technical people. They can understand this this scenario. Then you can see the files here, and if you want, you can download single file. For example, if you are interested in the OpenScenario, OpenDrive, or the visualization, or the Flex, you can do that. Then we have the root locations. I'll come to this in a minute, but briefly, what we wanted to deliver here is we have a predefined root locations. So when organizations are ready to test their scenarios in a real world location, they can test it in different sets that we have. Also in the versioning, which is also one of the requirements that we've noticed from the international events, that that you want to track or monitor the changes of the scenarios. So you can create a new version, you can revise your scenario, duplicate one if you are not interested, or update scenarios without actually update the existing one. You can also see the alternatives tab, which means that we are measuring the scenarios, how the scenarios is similar to existing scenarios and how the scenarios are not similar. So here you can understand what the unique scenarios. And this is one of the mechanisms that when users or organizations push scenarios into Certipool, we make sure that these scenarios are not similar based on the scoring mechanism or similarity mechanism that we use. And then if the scenarios are very unique, we accept it in Certipool. If not, then we reject this scenario. Another feature that I would like to highlight here is the downloading. So you can download the original scenarios, or you can download the scenarios with background traffic. So if you want to add, we have developed the functionality that you can add more dynamic elements or more background traffic to the scenario, unscripted elements. Also, you can download the reversed direction of the scenario, or the opposite direction of the scenario. If the scenario is drive on the right, you can also download the opposite one. And then you can add the scenario to test suite. So the test suite is when you have, for example, you search for certain queries, and you've got around, let's say, 100 scenarios from Certipool. Then you can get this scenario or drag and drop these scenarios into this test suite. For example, if you are interested in pedestrian crossing at night, then you can do your search against different libraries, even if you're private libraries, and then get, for example, 10 scenarios that are ready for being tested in your tool chain. And then this test suite will be also an interface when you interact with Safety Pool in the API. So based on the test suite, you can retrieve all the scenarios inside this test suite in the API or in the through the GUI. And testbed is the one that, or the feature that I also mentioned, when you can see or match your scenarios with a real world location. And here, for example, we have defined different roads. And also in the documentation, there are also an extensive documentation about how you can add your also road to Safety Pool. So here the roads are labeled with the also open label tags, and that's to make it easy for users to retrieve scenarios, or sorry, to allow users to match their scenarios that they have with the real world location. So you are ready to move on from virtual testing to a real world testing. And then you can match your scenarios based on the tagging mechanism with these test beds. Also, in terms of the management side, so this is based on the public library. So here, when you have your own libraries, for example, you have created your own libraries, and then you created your own scenarios, and would like also to highlight that these scenarios will be private and nobody can access this scenario except the organization users. I will talk about how the organization users are structured in a minute. One also of the features that we have is the tagging, auto tagging. So when you have your definition in Open Scenario, Open Drive, or the SDL, so then you can automatically generate the tags of the scenario by the auto generation function. So here we're calling backend services that generate all the tags for these scenarios. Also, you can generate if you have, for example, SDL, you can generate the OpenX for this scenario through the translation service that we also have. And we have also some documentation on that. In terms of the management, and to make this tool very robust and secure, then you can define your own rules for the administration, for the administrator of the organization. They can create rule, for example, and then they name the rule and what the area, for example, based on the scenario, you want this user to create scenario, this user to delete, update, read, and so on. So this is just in the management side. Also in the settings here, you can see that you can add your custom tags based on the organization level. For example, you would like to add, a copyright for my scenarios. So you can add these custom tags and will be added to the ontology. Then you can enable the access to the API. So once you enable this button, you will get a key that you can use it to retrieve scenarios. So this is just some of the features that we have developed. Unfortunately, I'm not be able to go to all the features in Safety Pool, but I highlighted some of them. Two things that I would like to mention at the end is, first, one of the features that we would like to develop in terms of the searching mechanism is, instead of also only have the tag, and this is in development now, is allow users to input an ODD definition, and based on that they can retrieve the scenarios. And the last thing that I would like to talk about is the knowledge base that we have. We have an extensive documentation about Safety Pool to introduce you to what we mean by Safety Pool, how the users can interact with Safety Pool. Also, we have also an examples in how to connect to Safety Pool using an API. like how you enable the API access, how to use the API access to get the tokens, and how then you can retrieve single scenario, retrieve the file of the scenario like Open Scenario, Open Drive, or the visualization. And so you can use it to feed your testing tool chain. We have also some of the examples in Python, written in Python and in Postman. Also, based on the feedback, we can implement more in different programming languages. So we would like to make that clear for everyone who can interact with Safety Pool, even if they are not non-developers. So we wanted to build this tool in friendly UI, also in a robust backend to retrieve the scenario using an API. Thank you very much. This is everything from my side. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Fadi. The Q&A tab has been really active, so that it seems like the demo has sparked quite a bit of questions from the group. So maybe what I'll do is, before we go into the Q&A itself, just a very brief overview of some of the next things that we are planning. So maybe if we could share our slide, please. Perfect. So one of the questions that we've always been asked about Safety Pool is how do we get access to Safety Pool itself? And the way to get access to Safety Pool is to go on to www.safetypool.ai, and that's the image on your left, and click on Get Involved at the top, and that would show you an online form. And once you've got access to that on the online form, you just put in your details, your name, your organization, your email address, and some of the other details. And then we get to know that you would like to get access to Safety Pool. One of the big pitfalls or issues that we've seen is, in the haste of filling up the form, a lot of people actually end up providing their personal IDs and not their organizational ID. So we've had lots of emails about @gmail.com, @yahoo-mail.com, so on and so forth. So all I would request is for people who are filling up the online form to please make sure that you're filling up with your professional or your work email address. And once you do that, then we will send you an email about the next steps and how to get access to Safety Pool. And we'll point you to another form where we would need your organization's legal address and your legal legal organization name and the organization's legal address. And you would need to appoint an administrator for your organization. And the reason we ask for this is we will provide access to Safety Pool to that administrator on behalf of your organization. So that administrator will be able to add new users within the organization. So another request over here is, when you are filling up this second form, please make sure you provide the entire organization's email, organization's address, and the entire organization's legal name. Because if you do not provide us with the whole address, we cannot actually provide you access, because we need to fill in a form internally and then to get you the access. Because once you get access, you will have to sign up to the terms and conditions of Safety Pool. And in order to do that, we need your legal name and legal address. So if you haven't heard back from us, the one possible reason would be that you actually haven't filled the form completely. We have had instances where people have said, oh, my organization is in the UK, but that does not help us because there are so many organizations in the UK. So please, when you fill up these forms, fill them up correctly so that we can actually get you access to your Safety Pool account. Okay, so that's what we wanted to share in terms of some of the overarching comments and experiences that we had. If we could go into the Q&A section of the webinar, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to run through a lot of the questions we've had. We've got over 26. I'm not sure we'll be able to cover all of them, but we'll try our best. And the ones that we can't cover, we'll actually take them offline and send all of you an overview of the responses. So I'll start off with Mo. Mo, we've got a couple of questions that I'd like to direct to you. We've got somebody asking if the database is accessible for academicians around the world for research purposes, and what would the next webinars be about? So if you could combine the two.
Sure. So yes, Safety Pool is accessible to organizations like Siddhartha mentioned already. So just please make sure that when you fill the form that you use your company or university email and that you go through the process correctly, and then you will be given access. And if for whatever reason that is not the case, you can email us and we can respond to that. And in terms of what we're planning for future webinars, so we have a lot of features planned and also guest speakers who are either using Safety Pool or about to start using it that will talk about their experiences and their use cases. And the idea is to cover as many stakeholders as possible. So we will engage with car makers, with technology providers, regulators, and academians as well. Yeah, hopefully that gives a good overview of what we're planning ahead. And we can go to the next question.
Perfect. Thank you, Mo. Our next question was around getting access and some issues with that. So please, if people who have raised those questions, please either you make sure you reach out to us at safetypoolscdb@warwick.ac.uk. The email address would also be in the last slide. Just to ensure that you've got the right details sent to us. And in other cases, it might just be that you're receiving the emails in your inbox, in your spam inbox, because some of the times that we've also seen that some organizations have a very, very active spam filter and the emails are going into the spam. So please make sure those are corrected. But if still you've got an issue, just reach out to us and we'll make sure that we solve your access issues. Moving on, we've got a question about ASAM and open label. Maybe I'll direct this to Fadi. The question is if we have actually identified extensions to ASAM open label, and would we be able to contribute to a follow-up open label standardization project? Fadi.
Yes, actually, we have enhanced the open label ASAM open label ontology to allow the more like easy journey for the user when they search for the tags, and also this is available in the documentation of the Safety Pool, so you can go to the knowledge base and see the ontologies that we have enhanced based on the open label ASAM open label.
Perfect. Thank you, Fadi. And just to add to that, we've been very active in the ASAM discussions. And so whatever we've identified here would go into the follow-up projects. Mo, would you like to add anything to that?
No, just kind of maybe just letting people know that we've been very actively working on open label the past few years, and we collaborated with the ASAM team on releasing it by end of 2021. So we're strong believers of collaboration with ASAM, and we try to be in sync, whether it's on open scenario side, open ODD, open X ontology, and open drive as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll take the next three questions quickly. So there's a question from Raj about if all the scenarios have an XODR file, which means an Open Drive file. Yes, they do. We support Open Drive 1.6 and Open Scenario 1.1. So all scenarios in Safety Pool have an Open Scenario 1.1 file, a corresponding Open Drive 1.6 file, a BSI Flex 1889 file, which is for the natural language, and our own SDL file. So that's always there. And which simulator do we use? We use a bunch of simulators in-house. We have our own Unreal-based platform. We use ESMini quite a lot. The visualizations that you see, some of them are in ESMini, some of them are in Unreal. So it's a mix depending upon the tool chains that we have. But we at WMG and at Safety Pool are simulator agnostic. And we would like to stay like that, because if we work with the platforms, the open standards itself, we can execute in any simulator. We have experienced that for every simulator, you need to make some nuances or / extensions to the Open Scenario Open Drive file, but we do that as part of the project that we are working on, or the commercial project that we are working on. Hopefully that clarifies that. Next one from Nilesh, are there any plans to map the scenarios with the context of ODD instead of specific features like ALKS or AEB and so on and so forth? That's a great question, Nilesh. The reason why you see the libraries as you do is because we have had a lot of input that people would like feature-based library. However, Safety Pool already allows you to search based on ODD, because if you use the search mechanism, you can use the ODD labels to actually get the relevant scenarios for your ODD. And as Fadi mentioned, very soon we're going to launch a feature within OO Safety Pool where instead of searching based on labels, you will be able to search based on a full ODD definition as per ISO 34503. So there would be a GUI that would allow you to enter the whole ODD definition that you have, and then the platform itself will extract the relevant scenarios for your ODD definition. So while the scenarios are in libraries of features, the platform allows you to search based on ODD. And if there's a specific ODD that is very relevant to you, you can convert that into a test suite after the search itself. Taking on the next one before I go back to Fadi and then to Mo, is the scenario description in Open Scenario 2, or in the new terminology, Open Scenario DSL, also planned and even already available? That is in our pipeline. Absolutely. There is some work that we're doing internally to and ensure we've got Open Scenario DSL also. That's something that would come in the upcoming months. Last one. Sorry, not last one, one for Fadi. Is the scenario visualization derived automatically from Open Scenario file, Fadi?
It's derived from the Open Scenario, yes, and Open Drive. We have a simulation team in our department that taking this and run that, as I mentioned, in different visualization platforms.
Perfect. Thank you, Fadi. I think the next one from Prem we've already answered. Yes, there is the plan for Open Scenario DSL. The big part of our WMG SDL2 has been the fact that we need some level of human readability in a scenario definition itself, and that's why we created SDL level 2. But a bulk of our focus right now has been around SDL level 1, which is geared towards the regulatory aspect right now. More I'll put one, sorry, maybe one for your side. Some definitions in Assam Open Label leave quite a bit of space for interpretation, like classification of cut-in behavior and so on and so forth. Do we want to create precise criteria for a Safety Pool? And maybe extending that to labeling also. I'll hand that over to you.
Yeah. So we have the metadata capability in Safety Pool, so that gives us a lot of flexibility on how you want to label your scenarios, if you're using them privately or if you want to share them with the rest of the community, that you can put any meta tags that you deem necessary. Obviously, we do have concepts that are cut-in, cut-outs, also like pedestrian coming out of a sudden, and you will see if you, or once you sign up to the pool, there is almost 270,000 scenarios, if not even more at this point in the database already. And a lot of what you think is already there. And I think it's hard for people that haven't seen it yet to realize how much is already there kind of on day one of their usage. And maybe I want to add, and this may be, this will come up in another question. Many of the scenarios that are in the pool were based on accident reports or insurance claims that was done by the University of Warwick before. So you get these kind of very realistic accident representations that are converted into scenarios in the WMG SDL, as well as now that you can export in Open Scenario 1.x. And like Siddhartha said, we're looking at the other formats as kind of part of our roadmap.
Perfect. Thank you, Mo. Moving on, there's a question around importing scenarios in different simulation platforms like Scanner, Roadrunner, CarSim, Carla, etc. To this, what I would say is if the simulation platform can handle Open Scenario 1 or Open Scenario XML, as it's called now, and Open Drive 1.6, then absolutely you can use it. Sometimes the simulation platform needs a bit of tweaking of the files. So that would be very specific to the platform itself. So if the platform can use Open Scenario XML and OpenDrive 1.6, then absolutely all the scenarios can be used over there. There's a question around alignment with IMTS testbeds. We have had some discussions. We would make sure that that happens. Right now, we don't have all the IMTS testbeds onboarded, but that's a part of the discussion. The important thing over here is this is not just about testbed. It's also about real world roads. So, for example, the roads in Germany and the UK that we already have. So it's more than just the test track discussion that we are having. I'll move on to a next question more. I'll direct to you from Sultan. Is Safety Pool not-for-profit project? And a second part of the question, are there options for partnership with small startups who are generating scenarios using CCTV cameras? Maybe over to you.
Yes. So Safety Pool as a project is funded in the University of Warwick, funded by the UK government. And with multiple institutions involved. So you can think of it as a nonprofit. So we're not trying to sell or commercialize the database itself. So the answer is yes, I guess. Then for the second question, for partnership with small startups, we're very interested in partnerships that can foster more usage and contribution into the database itself. So it sounds like from your question, Sultan, that you have real-world traffic scenarios from cameras. That sounds very interesting. And if you can email me, it's Muhammad@deepin.ai, and we can discuss further. I'm traveling now, so I won't be able to respond until a couple of weeks, but happy to take this more offline.
Thank you, Mo. And just another question around access. So if you please email the email address that you see in front of you, safetypoolscdb@warwick.ac.uk. We'll make sure you get the access, or we'll make sure you get a resolution to your access issues that you are having. I'll take one very quickly. It's quite a technical one, but let's go through it. From Ramesh, is there any kind of sensitivity analysis possible for scenarios? Example, light of intensity, changing fog, so on and so forth. Absolutely. If you, I think Fadi briefly showed you about this similarity between scenarios. So that's essentially a kind of sensitivity analysis that we're doing. But if you're looking at sensitivity analysis for the performance of the ADS perspective, then that is something that you will have to do as an execution in a simulation platform itself. So what we can provide you from Safety Pool is the sensitivity analysis from a scenario perspective, not from an execution perspective, because it would be a function of the ADS itself. One from Yunal around what kind of scenarios and where they're coming from. We've got a hybrid approach, Yunal. We didn't have time to go through that process, but very briefly, it's essentially a knowledge-based approach and a data-based approach. The data-based approach looks at real-world accidents, insurance claim records, as well as deployment data. And the knowledge-based approach is actually looking at things like the system design itself. So it's very much aligned to the discussions at the United Nations Economic Cooperation for Europe, the UNEC discussions, and also with the EU ADS Act that was published in August of 2022. So we are very aligned in terms of the scenario generation process. There's interesting question from Needham. Can we update the tool from private scenario database using Open Scenario to our natural language? Yes, you can. You can. That would be some of the internal services that we have. Or the only thing we'll need to ensure is you're using Open Scenario 1.1 and OpenDrive 1.6. Those are the versions that we're supporting. For anything else, we'll have to have a conversation. Please feel free to drop an email to safetypool@warwick.ac.uk. If you want to see how the scenarios are created, happy to share with you some information, some publications. Please have a look through the knowledge base itself. Maybe Fadi, we could put the URL for the knowledge base in the chat to everybody, and that would explain quite a bit of the process that we have. Does the API cover all the site functionality? It covers most of the site functionality, Ruben, but the things that maybe it's not covering will be added in the weeks and months to come. So we have an update for safety pool that happens every month. So those of you who might have already got access to safety pool would be receiving an email from Fadi every month saying when we are going to update safety pool, so that so that day we actually bring safety pool down for the update. But if there are any specific features in terms of specific API features that you would like, please do reach out and we'll make sure we get them added going forward. Then there's a question around, I assume, ODD definition based on PAS 1883. I would say it's partially correct, Ralph, partially incorrect. The ODD definition is based actually out of ISO 34503, which is the ISO standard for ODD taxonomy. And then going to Ferdinand, who's asking if your software suite features functionality to automatic extract scenarios from real world recorded data sets. So that's not something, Ferdinand, that we're looking into from a safety pool perspective, but that's something that is an added service on top of safety pool that we would be very interested in having a conversation about. So please feel free to reach out to Mo at mo@deepin.ai or to reach out to safetypool@warwick.ac.uk, and we will be able to have a discussion just around that. It's an added functionality on top of safety pool. Going on in terms of how many scenarios you provide for highway approximately. So the way Merv, I would answer that is there's quite a few. What I would suggest you do is, if you get access to safety pool, just search for the motorway label, and then you will get all the scenarios that are relevant to motorways itself. And then moving on to some of the questions around the libraries and searching and no-hit. I think it might be primarily, Danny, because of maybe the search query that you're making. There might be a few things that we need to tweak, because geofence area is actually a very specific label. You need to specify additional attributes on top of that. But if you please drop an email to safetypool@cdb@warwick.ac.uk, we can actually look into what exactly the query is and how we can resolve that. There's one from Esther around, could you provide information or detail on underlying knowledge regarding scenarios in the ALKS STPA database? That's a brilliant question, Esther. So what we've done is, as part of a project in the UK, we've taken the ALKS regulation 157, R157, and then done an STPA analysis based on the regulation document itself. And the scenarios that we have in Safety Pool are directly coming from an STPA analysis of the regulation document. That does not mean there cannot be other scenarios, and that's why you've got the accident database scenarios that would complement that. But the STPA scenarios are coming directly from an STPA analysis from the content of R157, as you know, which is the regulation for ALKS. Moving on very briefly, I will move this to Fadi. There's a question from Mark, which talks about, when we download open scenario files for any scenario, does it work in simulation? What about the infrastructure? Is it transformed into an open drive file? So maybe, Fadi, if you could tackle that.
Yes, so when you download any scenario from Safety Pool, you will have the open scenario plus open drive, and this open scenario is ready to be imported into any simulation platform. As Siddhartha mentioned, considering that the open scenario is 1.1 and open drive is 1.6.
Perfect. Thanks, Fadi. Moving on, I'm trying to answer some of them live or in the chat itself. I'm conscious of time. We've got 4 minutes left, and we've got lots of other questions left. So there's one from Ramesh. Are there any recommendations provided for which scenarios can be considered as edge case? That's a very interesting question, Ramesh, because a part of me believes that an edge case is a function of this ADS itself, of the automated driving system itself. And a part of me believes that edge cases can also be agnostic to the automated driving system. So the part that believes that it is a function of automated driving system, you will need to test them in a simulation platform to understand what these edge cases are. However, all the scenarios that you see in Safety Pool are actually driven from what we call as a hazard-based testing approach. So I would consider all the scenarios as edge cases or corner cases. One thing to note here is all the scenarios in safety pool are in logical scenario format. So you will have to concretize the logical scenario. We do have mechanisms within safety pool and within Warwick where we come up with algorithms for efficient concretization so that you can very easily and very quickly identify the edge case itself, the concrete values of the parameters. But we can have a conversation about that separately offline if you would like, if you're interested in the concretization bit. But all the scenarios in safety pool are considered to be edge cases or corner cases. However, I do believe the edge case and corner case is also kind of a function of the automated driving system. There's a question around how do we handle different levels of abstraction, functional, abstract, logical, and concrete. So within safety pool, we tend to work with a logical and functional, or you could say logical and abstract, one of those two combinations. So Flex 1889, BSI Flex 1889 is geared towards the functional scenarios, and the open scenario, open drive, and the WMG SDL is geared towards the logical scenarios. We consciously do not tackle concrete scenarios because we do not want to create a concrete scenario database which has a million concrete scenarios for the same logical scenario. However, we do have concretization algorithms which you could use to actually concretize your logical scenarios that you have. I'll take two more questions before we'll do a very quick wrap up, and we'll take the other questions that we have and answer them offline. So there's a question around, do we also have AD incident scenarios in the database? If yes, then is it a restricted access or publicly available? So we do have scenarios, and we will have increasing incident scenarios within for automated driving systems that happen in different parts of the world. What we are planning to do is to create a separate incident library, AD incident library, to make it easier for you to identify them. And we'll make sure they're all publicly available because we believe, especially those scenarios, the actual incidents need to be publicly available. So if you, I don't think that would be available in the next update, which is for next week, but the week after, for the next update, after that would be April, you should see an incident library within safety pool, and that will provide you with all those incidents itself. I will take a question from Okada-san. Thank you for joining. It's quite late in Japan. What's the difference between scenarios between ALKS scenarios and ALKS STPA? So the ALKS scenarios are what we call as driven more from an ODD and a behavior generation perspective that we have, and ALKS STPA scenarios are generated from an STP analysis of the ALKS itself. We can go into the details of that, Okada-san, if you want. We can have a separate call on that, but they're two very different scenario generation approaches. We've slightly run out of time, but we've got lots of other questions that we needed to answer. What we'll do is we'll take them offline and we'll send out a note to everybody. One thing I wanted to mention about future webinars is, if you move on to the next slide, please. One thing we want to mention about the future webinar is we will be issuing a whole list of programs within the next week or so, and the date for the next webinar. So this will be a monthly session, and every month we'll be introducing new features or the upcoming features of Safety Pool. So please stay tuned and do join us for those sessions. And you can also understand if your colleagues would be more interested for a particular session because of what the focus of the session is. So that will be following up from this session. We will upload the recording of this session on Safety Pool YouTube. We'll send an email to all of you so that you can access the recording. And lastly, just want to say a big thank you to all of you. We had over 120 participants on the call today. So Safety Pool will not succeed and is not there just for Warwick or DEEPAN. It's actually for the ecosystem. So we've been very honored to have all the support that we've had over the last 2 years, but we continue and we believe the ecosystem will keep supporting us. Please do reach out to us if you want a specific feature or a specific way of working for Safety Pool, and we'll take that on board. The email address is in front of you, safetypool@warwick.ac.uk. Please do follow us on LinkedIn also for updates on Safety Pool itself. So thank you once again. Have a great evening. Have a great day for those of you who are in the Americas or the Canadian region, and we look forward to seeing you next month with the next set of features on Safety Pool itself. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care.